Samuel dropped the wrench and sprinted. The sound hadn't been loud, just a sharp, choking cough that cut through the hum of his generator, but something about it froze his blood. He turned off the engine without thinking and ran toward the dark alley behind his workshop, grease still on his hands, heart pounding like he already knew what he'd find. "Hello," he called out. Another cough followed. Weak. Wet. Desperate. Samuel rounded the corner and stopped short. A little girl lay curled beside a rusted dumpster, her knees pulled tight to her chest, her body shaking uncontrollably. Her clothes were too thin for the night air, hanging off her like they belonged to someone else. Her lips were pale, cracked, and trembling. She lifted her head slightly when she heard footsteps. "Please," she whispered, barely louder than the rain starting to fall. "Water." Then her eyes rolled back. Samuel didn't hesitate. He scooped her up, shock rushing through him at how light she was, like she weighed nothing at all. Her body burned against his chest, fever-hot. He swore under his breath and ran back into the workshop, kicking the door shut behind him. He laid her down on the small couch he slept on some nights when work ran late, grabbed a rag, soaked it with water, and pressed it to her forehead. "Hey, hey," he murmured. "You're okay. I've got you." Her eyes fluttered open again. Dark. Huge. Afraid. "Don't leave me," she whispered. "I won't," Samuel said without thinking. "I promise." He had no idea that promise would change his life. By morning, the fever hadn't broken. Samuel hadn't slept. He sat on the floor beside the couch, watching the girl's chest rise and fall, counting every breath. When the sun crept in through the cracked window, he picked her up again and rushed to the nearest clinic. The nurse took one look at the girl and shook her head. "She needs tests. 4 fluids. Medication." "How much?" Samuel asked. The nurse named the price. Samuel swallowed. It was more than he made in a month. "I'll pay," he said anyway. "Just help her first." The nurse sighed, clearly used to this conversation. "Sir, we can't." "I'll pay," he repeated, firmer now. "Please." They took the girl inside. Samuel waited. And waited. Eventually, the doctor came out. "She's malnourished. Severe infection." If she'd stayed out there another night, the doctor shook his head. "You're lucky you found her." Samuel exhaled shakily. "Is she going to live?" "Yes," the doctor said. "But she needs daily medication and proper food. Consistently." Samuel nodded. "I'll do it." "You her father?" Samuel hesitated. "No." The doctor raised an eyebrow. "Guardian?" "No." "Then who are you to her?" Samuel looked through the glass at the girl lying on the bed, hooked up to machines, so small it hurt to look at her. "I'm the one who found her," he said quietly. "And I'm not leaving." He took her home that evening. She woke up as he carried her into the workshop, blinking in confusion. "Where am I?" she asked. "My place," Samuel said. "You're safe." She stared at the walls, the shelves lined with tools, the smell of oil in the air. "I don't have money." Samuel snorted softly. "Good. Neither do I." She managed a weak smile. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily," she whispered. "I'm Samuel." She studied him carefully. "Are you going to send me away?" "No," he said. "You can stay." She clutched his shirt, fingers digging in like she was afraid he'd disappear. "Thank you." Feeding Lily became a routine. Every morning before opening the workshop, Samuel made her porridge. He always gave her the bigger portion. When she noticed and protested, he waved it off. "I'm not that hungry." It was a lie. At lunch, he bought one meal and split it between them. At night, he pretended he'd already eaten. Lily watched him closely. One evening, she pushed her bowl toward him. "You should eat more." Samuel shook his head. "You need it." She frowned. "You're lying." He paused. "What?" "My mom used to lie like that," she said quietly. "When there wasn't enough." The words hit him harder than he expected. He cleared his throat. Finish your food. She did. But she kept watching him. As the days passed, Lily grew stronger. She started sweeping the workshop floor while Samuel worked. She handed him tools, asked endless questions, laughed when sparks flew. Customers noticed her. Is she yours? One man asked. Samuel glanced at Lily, who was busy lining up bolts by size. Something like that. Another customer frowned. You should be careful. People ask questions. Samuel nodded, but he didn't send Lily away. At night, she slept on the couch while Samuel took the floor. Sometimes he woke up to find her sitting beside him, staring. You okay? He asked once. She nodded. Just checking. Checking what? That you're still here. He reached out and ruffled her hair. Go back to sleep. One afternoon, Lily collapsed again. Samuel dropped everything and carried her to the clinic, panic clawing at his chest. The doctor frowned at the test results. She missed a dose. Samuel froze. No, I gave it to her. Every day. Did you give it with food? Samuel hesitated. The doctor sighed. Medication like this needs proper nutrition. Samuel walked out of the clinic with his head bowed. That night, he stared at his toolbox for a long time. Then he took out his favorite wrench, the one his father had given him, and sold it. The next day, Lily had meat in her food for the first time. She chewed slowly, eyes wide. This is good. Samuel smiled. Eat. Weeks turned into months. Lily stopped calling him Mr. Samuel. She started calling him Uncle. Then one day, without thinking, she said, Dad. The word hung in the air. Samuel froze. What did you say? Her face went pale. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. No, he said quickly. It's okay. She stared at him, hopeful. Is it? He swallowed hard. Yeah. That night, Samuel cried quietly after Lily fell asleep. The first warning came from the market. Lily was helping Samuel carry groceries when a woman stopped dead in her tracks. She stared at Lily's wrist. That bracelet, the woman said. Where did you get it? Lily pulled her hand back instinctively. It's mine. The woman's eyes narrowed. I've seen that before. Samuel stepped between them. We're late, he said curtly, steering Lily away. Dad. Lily whispered when they were out of earshot. Why was she looking at me like that? Samuel forced a smile. Some people are just nosy. But unease settled in his stomach. Not long after, a black SUV parked across the street from the workshop. Two men sat inside, watching. They were there again the next day. And the next. Samuel noticed Lily growing quiet whenever the SUV appeared. She flinched at sudden noises. She started waking up screaming. One night, she clutched him and sobbed. They're coming back. Who? Samuel asked urgently. The men, she cried. The ones who took me. Samuel's heart dropped. Took you from where? She shook her head violently. I don't want to remember. He held her tighter. Okay. You don't have to. But the fear didn't leave him. The police came on a Tuesday. Samuel was under a car when he heard boots hit the floor. Step away from the vehicle. He slid out, wiping his hands. Is there a problem? An officer looked at Lily, who stood frozen in the corner. Who's the child? My daughter, Samuel said before thinking. The word came out easily. Too easily. The officer raised an eyebrow. Biological. Samuel hesitated. No. Adoption papers. Samuel's chest tightened. Not yet. The officer sighed. We'll be back. After they left, Lily clung to him. They're going to take me. No, Samuel said fiercely. I won't let them. That night, Samuel couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, listening to Lily's breathing, dread gnawing at him. He had no papers. No money. No proof he deserved her. But he had love. And he knew he'd fight for it. The next morning, the black SUV returned. This time, it didn't leave. Men in suits stepped out. One of them spoke into a phone. Then the police arrived. Then a man stepped out of a sleek car that cost more than Samuel's workshop. He was tall, silver-haired, eyes sharp with pain and fury. "Where is she?" the men demanded. Samuel felt Lily grip his hand. The police officer turned to him. "Samuel Okoro, you are under arrest for suspected kidnapping and illegal guardianship." Handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists. Lily screamed. "That's my dad," she cried, throwing herself at him. "Don't take him." The billionaire looked at Lily. And his face broke. The handcuffs felt heavier than they looked. Samuel barely registered the cold metal around his wrists because Lily's screams drowned out everything else. She clung to his waist, sobbing so hard her body shook. "Dad. Don't let them take you. Please." One of the officers tried to pull her away gently, but she fought like a cornered animal, clawing and crying, her small hands gripping Samuel's shirt with desperate strength. "Stop!" Samuel shouted. "You're hurting her." The silver-haired man stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Take the child." Lily turned her face toward him, eyes blazing with fear and rage. "You're lying. He didn't steal me." The men froze. For a brief moment, the world seemed to tilt. Samuel looked at him closely for the first time. The man's expensive suit, his guarded posture, the way his jaw trembled as he stared at Lily, it wasn't anger. It was grief. "I am your father," the man said hoarsely. Lily screamed again. "No. My father is right here." She twisted and wrapped herself around Samuel's leg, sobbing uncontrollably. The police finally managed to pry her loose. She kicked and cried, reaching for Samuel as they dragged her back. "Dad. Dad, don't let them." Samuel struggled against the cuffs, panic clawing up his throat. "Lily. Lily, listen to me." She was screaming his name when they shoved him into the patrol car. The last thing he saw before the door slammed shut was her collapsing to the ground, held back by strangers. The holding cell smelled like sweat and disinfectant. Samuel sat on the bench, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. His mind replayed Lily's cries over and over until his chest hurt. A door creaked open. A man in a tailored suit stepped inside, the billionaire. "You have some nerve," the man said coldly. Samuel looked up slowly. "Where is she?" The man's eyes hardened. "Safe. Where she belongs." Samuel stood abruptly, chains rattling. "She belongs with me." The man scoffed. "You kidnapped my daughter." "I found her dying in an alley," Samuel shot back. "If I hadn't, she'd be dead." The man faltered, just slightly. "Her name is Lily," Samuel continued. "She was sick. Starving. She had no one." "You should have reported her," the man snapped. "I tried," Samuel said. "They asked for money I didn't have." Silence stretched between them. Finally, the man spoke. "My name is Richard Vale." Samuel said nothing. "My daughter was taken from me 7 years ago," Richard continued. "Declared dead. We buried an empty coffin." Samuel swallowed. "She was stolen by someone I trusted," Richard said, his voice cracking despite himself. "Someone who wanted leverage." Samuel stared at him. "Then why didn't you find her?" Richard's eyes burned. "I never stopped looking." The interrogation lasted hours. They asked Samuel everything: how he found Lily, why he didn't report her, how long he kept her, what he intended to gain. "I never wanted money," Samuel repeated over and over. "I wanted her alive." They showed him photos, news articles, missing child posters, a younger Lily smiling beside Richard. Samuel's chest tightened. "She doesn't remember that life." "Trauma erases memories," an officer said. Samuel shook his head. "She remembers being taken. She remembers being scared." They left him alone again. Lily sat curled up on a massive leather couch, hugging her knees. The house felt too big. Too quiet. A woman knelt in front of her. "Sweetheart, I'm Dr. Evans. I'm here to help you." "I want my dad," Lily whispered. Dr. Evans smiled gently. "You're with your real family now." Lily's eyes flashed. "He is my real family." Richard watched from across the room, his heart breaking all over again. "She won't eat," a maid whispered to him. "She won't speak to anyone else." Richard approached slowly. "Lily." She didn't look up. "I know this is confusing," he said. "But I am your father." She finally looked at him then, eyes cold. "Then where were you when I was sick?" The question cut deep. Richard opened his mouth. Closed it. "You weren't there," Lily said. "He was." The media exploded. Mechanic arrested for kidnapping billionaire's daughter. Poor man hiding rich heir for years. Photos of Samuel in handcuffs flooded the internet. Comment sections filled with hate. Lily saw one headline and threw the tablet across the room. "That's not true," she screamed. Richard turned off the TV. "Enough." She glared at him. "Why are you doing this?" Richard rubbed his temples. "Because I lost you once. I won't lose you again." "You're hurting him," she said quietly. Richard froze. Samuel met his public defender the next day. A tired woman with stacks of files and worry lines etched deep into her face. "They're pushing for serious charges," she said bluntly. "Kidnapping. Obstruction." "He didn't kidnap me," Lily said suddenly from the doorway. Everyone turned. She ran to Samuel, burying her face in his chest. "They let me see him," she said fiercely. "I told them everything." The lawyer blinked. "They allowed this." Richard stood behind Lily, conflicted. "I wanted her to speak freely," he said. Lily turned on him. "Then listen." She faced the lawyer. "He fed me every day. Even when he didn't eat." Samuel closed his eyes. "He sold his tools to buy my medicine," Lily continued. "He slept on the floor so I could have the couch." The lawyer swallowed. "That matters." Richard's jaw tightened. Court came faster than Samuel expected. The room buzzed with whispers. Samuel stood in ill-fitting clothes provided by charity, hands clasped tightly. Richard sat across the aisle, composed but hollow. Lily sat beside a social worker, eyes fixed on Samuel. The prosecutor spoke first. "This man deprived a grieving father of his child," he declared. "He hid her for years." Samuel wanted to shout, but he stayed silent. When it was their turn, the lawyer spoke carefully. "He did not steal," she said. "He saved." The judge frowned. "Why didn't he report her?" Samuel stood. "Because when I tried, they asked for money instead of help." Murmurs rippled through the room. The prosecutor sneered. "Convenient." Lily shot to her feet. "It's true." The judge banged the gavel. "Order." Lily's voice shook but didn't break. "He's my dad." The room went silent. Richard closed his eyes. That night, Lily ran. Security alarms blared through the mansion. They found her hours later, curled up outside Samuel's workshop, shaking. "He said he wouldn't leave," she sobbed when Richard arrived. "You're tearing us apart." Richard stared at the rundown building, the flickering light inside. Something inside him cracked. The next day, new evidence surfaced. Clinic records. Witnesses. Neighbors. Stories poured in. He always put her first. She looked healthier with him. He loved her. Public opinion shifted. Richard watched the news quietly. For the first time, doubt crept in. The judge called for a recess. The trial was far from over. Samuel sat in the holding room, exhausted. The door opened. Richard stepped in alone. "I owe you an apology," Richard said quietly. Samuel looked up, eyes hollow. "Bring her back." Richard swallowed. "I'm trying to do what's right." Samuel laughed bitterly. "Then listen to her." Silence filled the room. Outside, Lily pressed her hand against the glass, whispering, "Dad." Samuel pressed his palm to the other side. The courtroom felt heavier on the final day. Samuel stood quietly beside his lawyer, shoulders squared, eyes tired but steady. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. Every part of him ached, but none of it mattered compared to the small figure sitting across the room. Lily. She sat between a social worker and Richard, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. She hadn't looked at Richard once. Her eyes were fixed on Samuel, as if anchoring herself to him from across the distance. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The room settled into tense silence. The prosecutor rose first, confidence hardening his voice. Your Honor, while the defendant's intentions may appear sympathetic, intention does not erase crime. He concealed a missing child belonging to a grieving father. The law cannot bend for sentiment. Samuel listened without reacting. The prosecutor continued. If we allow this, we set a precedent that emotion overrides legality. The judge nodded slowly. Defense. Samuel's lawyer stood. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. The law exists to protect life. And life is exactly what this man protected. She gestured gently toward Lily. This child was dying. There was no ransom. No demand. No attempt to contact the father because the system failed them both. She paused. And today, the most important voice has yet to be heard. All eyes turned to Lily. The judge looked at her. Lily, do you wish to speak? Richard stiffened. Lily stood slowly. Her legs trembled, but she didn't sit back down. Yes, she said softly. Samuel's heart pounded so hard he felt dizzy. She took a step forward. Then another. When I was sick, Lily began, her voice shaking, I thought I was going to die. The courtroom was silent. I was alone. I was cold. I was hungry. She swallowed hard. He found me. He carried me. He stayed. She pointed at Samuel. He fed me every day, she said. Even when he didn't eat. I know because I watched him pretend. Samuel squeezed his eyes shut. He never asked me for anything, Lily continued. He never told me who I was supposed to be. He just loved me. Richard's jaw tightened. They say he stole me, Lily said, tears streaming down her face now. But no one owned me when I was dying. He didn't take me. He chose me. She turned to the judge, voice breaking completely. He's my dad. A sob rippled through the room. Richard lowered his head. The judge cleared his throat. Thank you, Lily. She didn't move. I don't want to leave him, Lily added desperately. Please. The judge nodded slowly. You may sit. Lily walked back, never once taking her eyes off Samuel. The judge called for a recess. Samuel sat alone in the holding room again, staring at the wall. His hands trembled slightly. He didn't know if it was exhaustion or fear. The door opened. Richard stepped inside. This time, he didn't look angry. He looked broken. I was wrong, Richard said quietly. Samuel didn't answer. I thought money could protect her, Richard continued. I thought power could undo the past. Samuel finally looked up. And love did what I couldn't, Richard admitted. His voice cracked. You kept her alive. Samuel stood. Then let her stay. Richard nodded slowly. I will. Samuel's breath hitched. What? I'll withdraw the charges, Richard said. Publicly. I'll tell them the truth. Samuel stared at him, disbelief flooding his face. Why? Richard swallowed. Because she deserves peace. The courtroom reconvened. Richard stood before the judge. Your Honor, he said, voice steady but heavy, I would like to make a statement. The judge gestured. Proceed. Richard turned to face the room. Cameras flashed. My daughter was taken from me years ago, he said. I spent millions searching. But I forgot something important. He looked at Samuel. I forgot that survival sometimes comes from places money cannot reach. Murmurs spread. "This man did not kidnap my child," Richard said clearly. "He saved her." Gasps filled the room. "I am withdrawing all charges," Richard continued. "And I am requesting joint guardianship, with Samuel Okoro as her primary caregiver." The room erupted. The judge raised his gavel. "Order." Samuel's knees nearly gave out. Lily broke free from her seat and ran. Samuel dropped to his knees just in time to catch her as she threw herself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "I knew it," she cried. "I knew you wouldn't leave me." Samuel held her tight, tears streaming freely now. "Never." The judge reviewed the documents carefully. After a long pause, he spoke. "This court recognizes the extraordinary circumstances of this case," he said. "Legal guardianship will be granted to Samuel Okoro, with supervised visitation rights to Richard Vale, pending Lily's consent." Lily nodded eagerly. The gavel struck. "It is so ordered." The courtroom exploded in applause. Samuel hugged Lily tighter, overwhelmed. Life didn't turn into a fairy tale overnight. Samuel returned to his workshop. But things were different. Customers lined up. Donations arrived anonymously. The workshop was renovated quietly, without headlines. Richard kept his promise. He didn't try to replace Samuel. He tried to learn. One afternoon, Lily watched as Richard awkwardly handed Samuel a check. Samuel didn't take it. "She's not for sale," Samuel said gently. Richard nodded. "I know." Instead, Richard funded a small clinic near the workshop. Lily visited every day after school. Months later, Lily stood on a small stage at school, clutching a microphone. "My dad taught me that kindness doesn't need permission," she said proudly. Samuel watched from the crowd, eyes shining. Richard stood beside him, silent. When the applause ended, Lily ran to Samuel and hugged him. "Did I do good?" she asked. Samuel smiled. "You did amazing." That night, Lily curled up beside Samuel on the couch. "You know," she said sleepily, "I don't hate him anymore." Samuel stroked her hair. "That's good. But you're still my dad," she added firmly. Samuel laughed softly, holding her close. "Always."